Welcome back to the Building Communities podcast presented by the building industry of Central South Carolina. I am your host, Brian Arnold, and today I have the very distinct pleasure to welcome a legendary marketing guru of our time, Kim O'Quinn. Thank you so much for being here.
Legendary?
Yes,
okay.
It is legendary.
All right.
You know, when you win pretty much every other year the marketing director of the year, you become legendary very quickly.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
I think I'm just legendary with my grandchildren, which is enough for me.
Oh, no. Everyone in our industry knows who you are. But the interesting part for me is we've known each other probably for about 14 years now.
Okay.
And this is going to be the longest conversation we've ever had.
Probably,
because
yeah.
it's always like, hey, how you doing
passing.
at a party?
Yeah.
Or, you know, we're doing this little business together, so we're talking about this very specific thing. So I'm really excited just to get to know you.
Thank you.
And, you know, see what you're up to now.
Okay.
So Kim O'Quinn from Mungo Homes, what are you doing now?
Well, last summer, actually, I transitioned to a new role at Mungo after leading the marketing team for 20 plus years. I was offered the opportunity to assume a new role at Mungo that was created pretty much for me. And I am the Corporate Vice President of Public and Community Relations, which is kind of a mouthful, and I have to abbreviate a lot of that in my signature and when I'm talking to folks, and it's really small font on my name tag.
So when you whittle it all down, what is it that you're doing?
Well, what I'm doing is waving the Mungo flag. Mm-hmm. I mean, that is it in a nutshell. What we realize, and I've known this forever, heading up marketing, is that public relations always fell further and further down the to-do list because you're always worried about getting traffic to the neighborhoods or what's the latest incentive or it's time to redo the website or whatever. And so we traditionally have not done a good job of public relations. And as we've grown over the years, I mean, we're now 675 employees in 10 markets, and we've actually doubled in size since 2019.
Wow.
So when you grow that fast and you're that large, it becomes important to try to hold on to the reputation that you've had for 70 years and make sure that people know who you are. And so it's more important than ever for us to focus on our reputation and who we are, who we've been and who we are and where we're going.
What are some of the strategies you're putting into place for that?
Well, it's interesting. I have no job description, and so the strategies are kind of flying by the seat of my pants.
Okay.
Sometimes it's very clear to me this is what I need to be doing right now, and then some days I wake up and say, okay, I need to figure out what my next project is. And I've done everything from we recently created what we're calling our annual meeting video, and I produced. We've now got a videographer on staff, and so he and I put together and produced a 40-minute video that we sent out to all the team members, and it's financials from last year and awards and that sort of thing.
Kind of like a State of the Union?
It's a State of the Union. That's
nice.
Exactly what it is. And so that was a several-month project. We've had several large home giveaways this year.
Oh, really?
We have. We've done some phenomenal things this year. Here in Columbia, we partnered with the United Way of the Midlands and Homeless No More, and we built a house in one of our neighborhoods, fair market value. We sold it, and all of the proceeds from the house were given to Homeless No More through the United Way for their project over on St. Andrews Road.
So it's not a family moving into a house,
we sold it to a family moving down here from Michigan, and the proceeds from the house is helping fund this project by Homeless No More. And all of our trade partners, not all of our trade partners, but many of our trade partners gave 100% of their time, their materials, their labor, everything, so that the proceeds from the house were about $250,000. So to backtrack and answer your question, my job was to handle PR, make sure the media got there, handle all the details around the events, and make sure that the check presentation goes well, and make sure that people know about this event, and I liaison with the United Way and with Homeless No More.
Yeah, because builders in this market are doing good for people.
Builders are doing really good things for people, and I think that it doesn't get enough. We don't get enough credit, and it's not spotlighted enough. Mm-hmm. And so that's one of the things that I'm doing, is trying to say, hey, look at the good things that we're doing.
Yeah.
I like to say I'm in charge of good news.
There you go. There you go. And putting out the fires.
There are some fires. Yes, yes, exactly.
Have you had? What was the feeling like when you let go of the reins on the marketing side?
Oh, I grieved.
Did you?
I did. I had a little bit of an identity crisis because I started marketing Mungo in 1998 on contract when I was with a small boutique advertising agency, and then Stephen Mungo brought me in-house in 2004. We had just expanded outside of Columbia for the first time to Charleston, and I've actually took him to lunch. He ended up taking me to lunch, but I was a little uncomfortable and not super happy where I was. I didn't have benefits, and I was a single mom and all that. So I took him to lunch, and I said, I think I'm going to make a change, and I don't know what to do with my life. And he said, oh, come to work for me. And I said, well, okay. And I didn't have to put a resume together. I didn't have to interview. It was very seamless. And so when this transition happened last year, I had built an amazing team of 9 folks and watched them flourish and grow. And I really did have an identity crisis because I didn't have that get up in the morning and have this laundry list of things I needed to do and the people that I needed to touch. And so it was quite a transition and quite a change for me.
How long did it take? I mean, it's been a year, right? So
it'll be a year in August. It probably, Brian, took me maybe till Christmas. I think it really took me getting through the holidays and a fresh new year for me to feel like, okay, this is good. I really like this. I don't have the Sunday scaries anymore. Well, most of the time I don't, but I'm not, I just don't have that angst that I used to have. And I used to call it the big red phone. There's no sales managers calling me and I have to answer the big red phone and they say, get me some traffic this weekend.
Oh, yeah.
I don't have that anymore.
There's traffic.
There's traffic. They don't understand. You have to water the grass.
Let's talk about marketing now. So what have you seen in the building industry most recently that is working for marketing and what isn't working anymore?
There is a gnat. Cut that. I will tell you that so much is digital. It's amazing how much of the marketing budget is for digital, whether it's for the website, social media, Google AdWords, Google My Business, whatever. There's so much of that of the budget is now towards digital marketing. Of course, I used to say that when I joined Mungo, or first started marketing Mungo, and I might not be able to say this, the budget for the state newspaper was $250,000 a year. Yeah. And probably haven't spent money with the state newspaper in
10 years.
10 years.
Yeah.
Sorry. But now that's shifted to digital, and probably 50% of the budget is on digital, and it does include, that's a big bucket. Digital's a big bucket. And one of the things that has evolved over the years is a social media manager.
Right.
And we've just hired another person for social media. So it's interesting. We have 2 folks on staff who handle social media.
Well, I would imagine with all of the different areas of the South that you guys cover.
Right.
To be able to, be at this event or covering this grand opening or.
Right.
You got to spread out, right?
Right. We absolutely do. One of the challenges with my role is go wave the Mungo flag, as I said, but I can't be in at a HBA, Home Building Association event in Raleigh one night and in Savannah the next day for a luncheon. And so that's been a challenge for me. There was 1 week back in March, I think, and I drove 1,200 miles that week. And by Friday, I was a dead puppy. I just couldn't. I was wiped. I just couldn't do that. And so I'm having to pick and choose the things that I do from an event standpoint, industry-related event standpoint, and I'm not doing a very good job there.
Well, you got to feel it out.
I have to feel it out, and one of the things, kind of my rule of thumb right now is if there are other Mungo folks that are going to be there, I don't need to go. And we had a recent event in Raleigh, for example. It was the MAME Awards, which is similar to our Regal Awards here, and I had a ticket and that sort of thing, and I had traveled a lot that week. And that Friday morning, I just woke up and said, I can't do another event. I've worked a zillion hours this week, and I just don't have it in me.
Yeah.
So I have to pick and choose. And there were other people that were going to be. I mean, we probably had 40 team members that were going to be at that event that
certainly
that
makes
night.
sense, yeah.
Yes.
Now, you have, obviously, with your track record of being with Mungo, have been a key member of the BIA for a very long time.
I have.
What is it about the BIA that keeps you coming back and fighting for it?
I can speak to that from a very personal standpoint and also from a professional standpoint. From a professional standpoint, the BIA offers the opportunity for education and, of course, the lobbying efforts, but it really is the support for what the builder members and the affiliate members and what the associate members are trying to do within the industry. And it's somebody to have your back. And what a lot of people don't realize is that the building industry doesn't just have members who are builders. It is attorneys. It is mortgage folks. It is pest control. It is let me back up. What people don't realize is that members of the Building Industry Association, it's not just builders, it is mortgage folks, it is pest control people, it is building supply companies, plumbers, electricians, anybody who has any peripheral relationship with builders, they're members because we like to do business with members. And so one of the things about being a member of the Building Industry Association is the networking. You having a meal with a builder or a supplier, a lunch or a dinner at a membership meeting or a potential membership meeting. I mean, you know how, especially in the South, our society is you like to do business with people that you know. And so you strike up a conversation and you realize, oh yeah, my son plays soccer too. And before you know it, you're doing business together. And so really it's learning who the key players are and who the great vendors and suppliers are in this industry and doing business with them.
It really makes sense. Like, I was at a meeting the other day and I was like, oh, I've been a member of the BIA for 13 years or something like that. And they're like, what's the BIA? I'm like,
right.
the old Home Builders Association.
Right.
And you still have to explain that every once in a while.
Right.
But when you think about it, the Building Industry Association is a better name for what we do than the Home Builders Association.
Well, it is.
It's so much more broad and inclusive.
Well, and it is. And interestingly, I was on the board of directors when we changed the name from the Home Builders Association to the Building Industry Association, because one of the things that we realized was that we weren't really serving the commercial builders here in town. And I think Mark Hood with Hood Construction was one of the first ones who really championed and rallied behind the name change, because I think he was already involved. Mm-hmm. But it was sort of a misnomer because it's not just home building, it's just construction in general. And so now we have commercial builders who are involved with the BIA. And you're right, building industry is a much better name than Home Builders Association.
When you talk about all of the downline people, the industry is huge.
It's huge.
And it affects so many people.
Well, and that's a good point, because as the industry has had its fits and starts and struggles and that sort of thing, and I have seen recessions and depressions and all those words, is that you don't realize that if the home building industry or even the commercial building industry suffers a little bit, I mean, it trickles all the way down to the furniture folks and the flooring folks and the wallpaper people and the landscapers and all that. It's not just the builders; it's the people who supply the nails. The number of industries and folks that it affects is huge, and people don't think about that.
Yeah, and I mean it wasn't ever more prevalent than in 2008 when it all crashed down, and the mortgage fiasco happened, and then nobody was building, nobody was buying. And it wasn't just the builders affected; it was everybody was affected because
that's right.
We all have a home.
We all have a home, and we all have to have a home, and that's one of the things we talk about right now. Is I think nationally, and I don't know what the exact statistic is. I've seen between 5 and 8 million housing unit shortage nationally. And I think the last statistic I pulled was from Zillow, and I think it said 5 million. But I think the National Home Builders Association says 8. But even if it's just 5, that's a lot. That's a big shortage in housing.
Yeah. Where do you think the industry is going to go in the next year or so?
I think what
are you seeing?
What so many of the builders are trying to rally around and champion is attainable housing, because what's happened is the cost of construction has really gone way up. Everything from the cost to get goods here to the United States to the cost to manufacture, nails and OSB and appliances and that sort of thing. People don't think about how expensive those things are now. But one of the things that's really hurting our industry is just, and forgive me for using this term, but just the red tape to get lots on the ground. Permitting is taking forever, just developing lots. It used to be that we could buy a piece of land and have lots on the ground within, say, a year. That's not the case anymore. It's 3, 4, sometimes 5 years before we can buy a piece of land and get it through permitting and engineering and development and all that sort of thing and get lots on the ground to even start a neighborhood. And the holding costs for all those years.
Right, I was just about to say, that is a huge investment.
It's huge.
That timeline and pipeline that you have built up, it's massive.
It's massive, and what happened during COVID is folks were let go in permitting offices and that sort of thing. And so I don't know that they've staffed back up. And so these offices where we used to go to get permits or licenses or whatever, they're still short-staffed. And so instead of a permit taking 3 days, it's taking 3 weeks or 3 months or whatever. And so people the general public they just don't realize that. They just don't understand it.
What could we do to educate them?
Well, it's interesting because
without being condescending.
Well, and condescending is a good word, because I've always said, just listen to us. But, and it's hard to get that message out without being condescending. At the BIA, I've been on, like I said, I've been on the board of directors and on the sales and marketing council, and being in marketing, been on several committees where we've talked about what can we do to market the home building industry. And it's, we need to run this campaign and educate people on what's going on in the industry. But it costs so much to market. It costs so much to advertise. And sometimes if you wave your own flag, then it looks like condescension, or it looks like, okay, they're tooting their own horn, or they're getting defensive or whatever.
Yeah,
so we've
that's
never
their
really
narrative.
So we've never really done that.
Right. I guess it comes down to just the more we can talk about it. It's kind of funny. There was are you familiar with Nate Bargatze?
I am.
Okay, yeah. So
he doesn't swear, which I love about him.
He's great.
And he has the most beautiful skin. I saw him interviewed recently. Maybe it was on Jimmy Fallon or something. And I was like, what do you put on your skin?
So anyway, he has this bit where he talks about, now I forgot it.
When he started as a water meter? Or
yeah. But he's a water meter guy, and he was talking about this idea that, oh, shoot.
We can come back to it.
We'll come back to that. What we were talking about was the idea of letting people know. Oh, that's what it was. So he was talking about saving the environment,
right?
Or right, and like they were saying like, what are you supposed to do about global warming? And one of the global warming websites said, you just got to talk about it with your friends. And he's like, oh yeah, I'm going to go to a party and be like, so what do you guys feel like about how global warming is treating you?
Oh shoot, excuse me, I have to go get another drink.
But that's kind of the thing is like, yeah, how do we talking to our friends, family, our environment about the good that's happening, that the industry is doing, is probably a good way to go about it. But at the same time, extremely awkward to just bring up in a hang around the fire pit kind of conversation.
It really is, and I think it's interesting because I have a brother who's a physician, and he hates going to parties because people are always saying, I've got this pain right here. And he's like, okay, come on, I'm just here to have a good time.
That's right.
And I have a son who's a custom builder, and so he goes places and people say, my garage door's not closing.
How much do you think it would cost to add a fireplace?
Right, exactly. And I do that to my son as well. It's like, hey, what do you think about this? But it is hard to approach folks and say, did you know that lot costs have gone up 50% in the last 4 years? They're like, huh, what are you talking about? So I don't really know. I think it's forums like this. I think it's getting out there, pushing content out there. I think there are folks who still read magazines. And so, publishing articles and pushing social media content out there and podcasts and blogs and all that. I mean, and asking people to share, because we know the algorithm, you share something and it gets out there.
Right.
So, I mean, but it is tricky.
What is one of the things, I guess, one of your memories of being a part of the BIA that just sticks out to you and you're like, oh, this moment of time was just ideal BIA?
This is going to be very personal.
Mm-hmm.
So I lost my husband 10 years ago. It'll be 10 years ago next week.
Yeah.
And, of course, he was a builder, worked for Mungo, and I was moving, and I had TVs on the wall, and I couldn't get them off the wall. And, it had been 6 months since I lost him, and, he was a big guy, and so, he could leap tall buildings in a single bound for those who knew John. But I needed some help. And Mike Kinsella with Stanley Martin now, he showed up to help me. And Jeremy Gould, I can't remember who Jeremy was with at the time.
He always jumps around.
He jumps around a little bit. Awesome human being. Jeremy Gould showed up, and Brandon Jeffcoat. He was with Clark Pest Control then. Of course, he's got his own company now. The three of them showed up at my house and took the TVs off the wall for me and loaded them in my car. And it was one of those things where they didn't have to, and it was a Tuesday afternoon. It was the day I was moving, and they just showed up. And it's not like the three of them are best friends or anything. And had it not been for the BIA, that never would have happened.
That is a great story.
It's amazing. It really is.
Yeah. And that gets back to the connections and the networking and the true friendships that you ultimately make, because you're going through the same ups and downs.
Professionally, you're going through the same thing. We're all in the same boat. Yes.
And I heard this quote a long time ago. It was like, the way you actually build community is through service.
Yes.
And what you're doing with Mungo is very service oriented. How can we do more service projects with the BIA, and then with that build the foundation? The BIA's foundation. Can you talk a little bit about the foundation?
Well, the BIA Charitable Foundation is very near and dear to my heart. I've been on the board now for almost 10 years and vice president. And when I lost John, of course we knew he had cancer, and it was very quick, very aggressive. So he and I had the opportunity to have lots of conversations. When he was diagnosed, we said no regrets, and so we talked about everything we needed to talk about. So we agreed before he passed, no flowers, make donations to the BIA Charitable Foundation. And what I did was I established a scholarship to Clemson through the BIA Charitable Foundation. Now, it's not a Clemson University recognized scholarship or anything, but it is through the Charitable Foundation, which is a 501c3, so it's tax deductible. And so I established that scholarship, and over the last 9 years or so, donations, me begging, asking, selling T-shirts. I had an event for my 60th birthday party and had an auction. We've raised almost $100,000 to put into his scholarship, and of course it's almost like an endowment. So I sweep the interest every year, which is about 10%. And so every year I give about, and it's actually I give a little bit more than that in scholarships, $12,000 to $13,000 to kids going to Clemson, and seeing these kids get to go to school and you know, they could get there. Most of them could get there without the scholarship, but one of the families who got a couple of the scholarships, they have a yours, mine, and ours relationship, and you know, between the two of them, they have either 5 or 6 kids. Shelton and Jules Twine. I don't remember if they have 5 or 6 kids, but they had several in college at the same time, probably 4, and it just eased their burden a little bit.
Yeah.
And the very first recipient of the John Ryle Scholarship was a young man who grew up in a pretty, I don't want to say impoverished. So the first recipient of the John Ryle Scholarship was to a young man who grew up in a family that was not middle class, and no one in his family had ever been to college before. And he was working for one of the developers, and he was nominated for an award or for a scholarship. And I remember interviewing this young man, and he had borrowed a suit. He had gone to a store and borrowed a suit or bought it and maybe had to return it, but the little paper thing that's on the the sport coat, the tag on the sleeve was still on the coat and all that sort of thing. He truly could not have gone to Clemson had it not been for that scholarship. And I still get chills to this day. He graduated in December of 2017, I think, and he invited me to graduation. And I get emotional about this too. I remember sitting at graduation, just sobbing because Austin had graduated. I was crying because of why I was there and how I got there. And so it was really a mishmash of joy and sadness. But when you look at that's what the Charitable Foundation did, it allowed for this young man to go to college. Mm-hmm. I mean, I just can't speak enough about the Charitable Foundation.
How many scholarships does the Charitable Foundation give out typically?
I don't know, about 45. This year we gave out about $58,000.
So are they like $1,000 scholarships or full?
Yes, they're not large.
Okay.
And it might cover your laptop for the year or books. I don't know. Do people still buy books? I don't know. Or maybe it's your fraternity dues or something like that. But it's just enough. Mm-hmm. And it's anywhere from $1,000 to $2,500 a year.
Wow.
And this year we gave out about $58,000. And this year, the awards this year pushed us over $1 million total that the Charitable Foundation has given over the years.
Over 35 years?
It's been since the mid to late 80s,
okay.
Yes, when the Charitable Foundation was established by Ernie Magaro.
Wow.
I really need some water.
Yeah.
I'm clacking. Oops. Am I sounding okay?
Yeah.
Okay. How am I doing?
You're doing great. So the Charitable Foundation and the scholarships, do you have to be a member of the BIA or your parents have to be a member of the BIA to apply?
Technically, yes, your parents have to be a member of the BIA in good standing for a certain number of years. I think it's 3 years, or a member of the Sales and Marketing Council. We have had situations like the first recipient of the John Ryle Scholarship where he was working for a developer. And, of course, he didn't have the means or the connections to be a member of the BIA.
So I guess they could be sponsored by someone.
You could be sponsored by somebody, yes.
And do they have to be going into they can do any major, or do they have to be going into the building industry, construction management type of degree?
Depends on the scholarship. The Sales
Oh,
and
okay.
Marketing Council, for example, I think that is earmarked specifically for somebody who's going into real estate or marketing. The scholarship that I established is just Clemson. There are a couple of scholarships where they have to be in a construction type or construction related degree to get the scholarship. And it's only for in-state schools, South Carolina schools, unless you're going for a degree that is not offered in-state. We've had a couple of folks who, well, gosh, I can only get this degree at Ole Miss, and so we allowed him a scholarship.
Interesting. I grew up in the industry, obviously. My dad was a builder and a contractor and, developer and all that. And I always thought I'd be an architect, but Carolina doesn't have an architecture program.
Degree. Yeah.
And I'm like, well, I'm not going to
I'm
Clemson.
not going to Clemson. It's a great school.
So I became a media arts major.
Okay,
and
well.
got into marketing. This is a roundabout world.
It's a roundabout way. I know.
Yeah.
I know. I was an English major, and I had illusions of going to law school, and I realized, wow, I don't want to do all that reading.
Well, actually, I got into Carolina as a biology major.
Okay.
And I went to orientation, and I was like, I don't really want to do all this math and
Right.
science.
Right.
What is easy? What can I do? Make movies? I think that
That
media
sounds
arts
fun.
degree,
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
should be good.
Right. Well, yeah. Where you end up, how you end up where you are is so circuitous. It's
Yeah.
amazing. So.
And then, interesting because I went from there. I was out in LA for 6 years, and learned how to do graphic design and all that other stuff. And then when I moved back, because I had a house that I couldn't sell, it was 2011, and I ended up getting a job at Russell and Jeffcoat.
Right.
And within a year, I went from being their graphic designer to the head of marketing. And it was just like, I taught myself how to do graphic design.
Right.
I
Right.
didn't have a formal training in that.
Well, and graphic design anymore is so computer generated. I mean, it used to be that if you did graphic design, you had to know how to draw. And now you've got to know how to use InDesign or Photoshop or
Right.
whatever those
Well,
programs are, and have to have that creative brain.
We were having a conversation just yesterday about AI, right? And it's
Oh.
like the creativity is in the prompt.
It is in the prompt. You're exactly right.
It's not even in the actual function of creating it. It's the prompt.
It is
How
in the
can I
prompt.
get cowboys riding on
Penguins or
yeah.
whatever
Well,
it
I
is.
actually recently saw one. Cowboys riding on alligators through a river. And that was just the video that was created. It was just like wild stuff.
It's wild. And I was, because of my generation and all that, I mean, I'm a copywriter kind of at trade. That's what I really love to do. I really was, we can't use Chat GPT. We can't do this. And then I sat in on a webinar a couple of years ago and went, oh, okay, this is pretty cool.
Yeah.
And I've since talked to people who write books, and they're using Chat GPT for, some of I couldn't get the summary down, and I've been real busy the last couple of days, and I have to be in the right headspace to write, and I've been working on a press release for 2 days, and I can't finish it. And as I was driving over here today, I was like, maybe I just put it in Chat GPT and let them spit it out.
Put the bullets in there and let it go.
Put the bullets in there and spit it out.
How do you think AI is going to kind of move the marketing industry and, the building industry in general?
Well, I don't think AI is ever going to succeed. Well, I shouldn't say ever. It's going to be a long time before AI can successfully design a house. I think I mentioned that my son is a custom builder, and he and his wife are in the early stages of designing a new house for them because
Nice.
they're in 2,800 square feet, and they have 4 kids, and they're on top of one another. And so for fun, he put in Chat GPT all the correct bullet points, and it spit it out. There's a car parked in one of the bedrooms, and there's no door to get outside, and so it's really odd. But I saw something the other day, a story the other day about what AI is going to do, and that. Yes, some jobs may be lost, but then there are going to be jobs that are created because something called a plumber, I don't know what that is, but it's related to AI. You have to be a plumber, and I guess it's making AI work or something. Look it up.
They're actually confiscating our industry terms in order to...
Is that what they're doing? Well, darn. Okay.
Yeah.
But I think
Until there's a robot that's going to come and sand my floor, which is possible.
Which is possible. I mean, see, that sounds like a great thing because you don't breathe in all the dust.
Because you have those, I don't know if you've seen those robots that will paint lines on a field,
Yes.
like a baseball field.
Yes.
So they map it all out. So I guess you could have like a little sanding machine, like a Roomba, that goes and sands the floor, and then goes through and finishes the floor.
I guess so.
But you still got to have someone buy it.
Somebody's
and bring
got
it
to
there.
program it.
Yeah.
Yes. I mean, my 6-year-old grandson was somewhere the other day at fast food and ordered some tacos or something, and a little robot. He just thought that was the coolest thing. A robot delivered his food to his table. You know, when you're 6, that's really cool.
Yeah. They had one of those at Highway 55.
Okay, and maybe they were
321.
at Highway 55. I don't know.
It was Dorothy.
But I think that AI has its place. But we really need to monitor it. And I mean, I'm not an expert, but it needs to be regulated.
Yeah.
In lots of industries.
So, with the Building Industry Association, what would be something that you would tell a person coming into interested in membership?
Right.
Give us 3 tips on someone that is going to just join the BIA and has got their membership.
What to do?
Yeah.
Well, first of all, you get out of it what you put into it. So you can't write a check for the $700 or whatever it is now and expect to get anything out of it unless you go to the meetings, unless you go to the box lunch with a builder, or you go to the breakfast or the cocktails and connections. You're never going to get your money out unless you actually participate. It's like anything else. So participate, meet people, circulate, stick out your hand and say, "Hi, I'm John Doe and I'm with XYZ company." Again, it's a networking opportunity. And then look at the things, especially if you're a small business, what discounts or what things are out there for small businesses that might take the load off of some of what I have to pay for my small businesses. What benefits are there for my small business? Because there are benefits, discounts and that sort of thing. And look at, and this is but look at other companies like yours in the industry. The great thing about the BIA in Columbia is we are one big team. I see us go to this state convention and we sit with our fellow builders from Columbia, and if I've heard it once, or even at the International Builder Show in Las Vegas, I've heard it once, I've heard it a zillion times, y'all act like y'all are friends. And we're going, well, of course we're friends. We're not, there's no animosity. Yes, at the end of the day, everybody wants to sell as many houses as possible, but there's enough to go around. Mm-hmm. And there's nothing wrong with kicking around ideas with your competition. And so make friends with people who have the same job or you're in the same exact type company that you're in. So it's really putting yourself out there, meeting people, attending the meetings, circulating, and then connecting with folks who are in the same business that you're in.
That's great advice. Great advice. Thank you so much.
Yes.
So that's all we have for today on this episode of Building Communities. Thank you so much, Kim O'Quinn, for joining me today.
Enjoyed it.
It was a pleasure to have this conversation. And be sure to like and subscribe, and we'll see you next time.